Jack Miller stood alone at the massive window overlooking the swirling nebula. The blue and purple gases twisted like ocean currents against the black of space. His reflection stared back at him. Tired eyes, messy brown hair, and the wrinkled gray uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. The small blue and green Earth patch on his shoulder felt heavier than ever. The transport ship that brought him to Nexus Station had left 6 hours ago. No one had greeted him on arrival. No one had shown him to his quarters. The message simply appeared on his handheld device with directions and an access code. Ambassador Miller, a voice called from behind him. The Council will see you now. Jack turned to face a tall, thin alien with pale blue skin and 4 arms. The Vexian clerk looked down at him with those strange sideways pupils. "Thank you," Jack said, straightening his uniform. "Lead the way." They walked through gleaming corridors filled with representatives from hundreds of worlds. Beings with scales, feathers, exoskeletons, and gelatinous bodies moved with purpose. None made eye contact with Jack. Some even changed direction to avoid him. "They fear what happened to Earth might be catching," the Vexian said without turning around. "Superstitious fools." Jack said nothing. What could he say? Earth had gone silent 3 months ago. The colonies followed, one by one, until only the smallest outposts remained. Then they too fell quiet. For all Jack knew, he was the last human alive. He had been off-world when it happened, serving as junior diplomat on Centauri Prime. Now he was the senior ambassador by default, the only ambassador. The council chamber doors opened, revealing a vast circular room. 500 seats arranged in rising tiers surrounded a central speaking platform. Only about half the seats were filled today. Jack recognized most of the species, but knew few by name. "The human representative, Ambassador Jack Miller," the Vexian announced, voice echoing in the chamber. Jack walked to the platform, his footsteps too loud in the sudden silence. "Ambassador Miller," said Councillor Drav of the Mercurians, his voice deep and rumbling. "We did not expect Earth to send anyone." "Earth didn't send me," Jack said, "but I am here to represent humanity." A murmur ran through the chamber. Jack caught fragments. "Pointless. Extinct. Why bother?" High Councillor Zeth of the Arcturian Collective raised his hand for silence. The ancient alien skin was almost translucent, showing the blue veins beneath. "The Council recognizes the human representative," Zeth said, "though we question what purpose it serves. Reports indicate all human worlds have gone dark. Do you bring news to contradict this?" Jack swallowed hard. "I do not. But until proven otherwise, I stand as humanity's voice. A voice for the dead." Someone whispered, loud enough to hear. "Humanity built wonders and reached the stars," Jack said, louder now. "We deserve a place at this table until our fate is certain." Zeth studied him for a long moment. "Very well. The Council grants temporary recognition to Ambassador Miller as the human representative. You are assigned observer status until the situation with Earth is resolved." Jack bowed slightly. "Thank you, High Councillor." "You are assigned quarters in the Eastern Wing, Section 47, Zeth continued. "Your office will be in the Diplomatic Annex, Level 3. The Council has more pressing matters to discuss. You are dismissed." Jack stepped down from the platform, feeling the stares of hundreds of alien eyes. As he reached the door, a young female Arcturian stepped into his path. "Ambassador Miller," she said softly. "I am Vila Moore, Junior Data Analyst. My superior wishes to speak with you privately." She glanced around nervously. "Delegate Zornful believes your people's silence may not be an isolated incident." Jack stared at her. "What do you mean?" "Not here," Vila Moore whispered. "Tomorrow, at your office. He will come at the morning bell." She hurried away before he could respond. Jack continued to his assigned quarters, a small room with a bed, desk, and another window looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, silent and possibly dead. He placed his hand against the cold glass. "I'm still here," He whispered to the darkness. I'm still here. Jack arrived at his office an hour before the morning bell. The small room had just enough space for a desk, 2 chairs, and a basic computer terminal. The walls were bare gray metal. No windows. He sat at the desk and tried to access information about Earth, but his clearance level granted him almost nothing. The door slid open precisely at the morning bell. A tall Arcturian with dark blue skin entered. Unlike Vellamore's delicate features, this male had deep ridges along his forehead and jawline. His 4 eyes, too large, too small, studied Jack carefully. Ambassador Miller, I am Delegate Zornfol of the Arcturian Collective, he said, closing the door behind him. We have little time. The High Council monitors most conversations, but not this one. Jack asked. Zornfol held up a small device. This creates a bubble of static. It will not work for long. They will notice. Why are you here? What do you know about Earth? Nothing certain about Earth specifically. Zornfol sat across from Jack. But your people are not the first to go silent. There is a pattern stretching back centuries. Jack leaned forward. What pattern? Younger civilizations vanish. Communications stop. Planets appear abandoned. The Council records list disasters, plagues, or civil wars as causes, but my research suggests otherwise. What does it suggest? Zornfol's eyes darted to the door. Something moves through our galaxy. Something ancient. The elder races know of it. They have records locked away even from Council members like myself. Why tell me this? Jack asked. Because the Arcturian Collective is young too. We may be next. Zornfol stood. Vellamore will bring you data. Trust no one else. He turned to leave. Wait, Jack called. How can I? The device in Zornfal's hand blinked red. Time's up. We never spoke. He hurried out. Jack sat alone, processing what he'd heard. His terminal beeped with an incoming message. The screen showed only static, then cleared to display text. Human frequency. Alpha CVN 9er. Secure Shicheanil. Respomendi with Earth Protoka Ul Sierra Lime. 5G. Jack's heart raced. Alpha 79er was an old emergency channel. Sierra Lima 5 was a verification code known only to high-ranking officials. His fingers trembled as he typed the response. The screen flickered, showing a woman's face. Her blonde hair was cut short, her blue eyes tired but alert. The image quality was poor, breaking up every few seconds. This is Dr. Samantha Foster of Research Outpost Horizon, she said. Is this truly a human receiving? Yes, Jack said quickly. Ambassador Jack Miller, last representative to the Galactic Council. Where are you? Are there other survivors? The signal's not secure enough for that information. Samantha said, listen carefully. What happened to Earth wasn't natural. It wasn't a disaster or war. It was taken. Taken? By whom? Not whom. What? The image broke up more severely. We've been studying it. The void entity, older than the Council. Older than. Static interrupted. Evidence in the archives. The elder races. More static. Bargain. Sacrificing. You're breaking up, Jack said. Please repeat. Cannot maintain connection. Too dangerous. We'll contact again. Find the Arcturian data analyst. She knows where. The screen went black. Jack tried to reestablish contact, but the channel was dead. He sat back, mind racing. Other humans were alive. Earth was taken by something called the void entity, and somehow the elder races were involved. A soft knock at the door made him jump. Vila Moore slipped in, looking over her shoulder nervously. She placed a small data crystal on his desk. Delegate Zornfol asked me to bring you this, she whispered. It contains star maps showing systems that went silent over the past 3 centuries. The pattern is disturbing. Thank you, Jack said, taking the crystal. Have you heard of something called the void entity? Vellamore's eyes widened. Where did you hear that name? I received a message from other humans. They mentioned it. Other humans. Her voice was barely audible. They survive. Some, yes. Do you know about this void entity? Villamore glanced at the door again. Only myths, stories to frighten children. A darkness that consumes worlds. She backed toward the exit. Be careful who you share this with, Ambassador. There are ears everywhere. She slipped out as quietly as she had entered. Jack stared at the small crystal in his palm. It seemed impossibly heavy for its size. Somewhere out in the vastness of space, other humans still lived, and they knew why Earth had fallen silent. He inserted the crystal into his terminal and began to read. For 3 days, Jack barely left his office. The data crystal contained hundreds of reports spanning 3 centuries. Entire civilizations had gone silent. The official records blamed wars, diseases, or natural disasters. But the pattern was unmistakable. Once a world went dark, it never returned to the galactic community. On the 4th day, Jack stood in the lower docking bay, waiting. He had used his diplomatic access to check ship schedules. One name caught his attention. Greg Walsh, human cargo pilot. According to records, Greg's ship Lucky Star still made regular deliveries to Nexus Station. A small battered cargo ship landed smoothly on the bay floor. Its hull showed patches of different colored metals, repairs made over many years. The ship's door opened with a hiss, and a man stepped out. Greg Walsh was short and stocky, with a thick brown beard and small, alert eyes. He wore a faded flight suit with countless pockets. He spotted Jack immediately and walked over, hand extended. Another human, Greg said, his voice rough but warm. Thought I was the last one flying. Jack shook his hand firmly. Ambassador Jack Miller, I was hoping to talk to you. Privately. Greg studied him for a moment, then nodded. Come aboard. Got some real coffee, not that synthetic stuff they serve here. Inside the ship, the main cabin was clean but cramped. Maps, tools, and spare parts filled every available surface. Greg poured coffee from a battered pot into 2 metal cups. So, Ambassador, what brings you to my humble ship? Greg asked, sitting across from Jack. I need transport, Jack said quietly. Off record. To these coordinates. He slid a small paper across the table. Paper couldn't be traced like electronic messages. Greg glanced at the numbers, then frowned. That's the Oort clouded region. Restricted area. Nothing out there but space dust and old asteroids. According to official maps, yes, Jack said. Can you take me? Why would I risk my license for a trip to nowhere? Because there might be other humans alive out there, and they might know what happened to Earth. Greg's cup stopped halfway to his mouth. Other survivors. You're sure? I received a message from a Dr. Samantha Foster at Research Outpost Horizon. The signal came from that region. Greg set his cup down with a thunk. I had family on Earth. Sister, nephews. His eyes grew hard. When can we leave? Tonight. My diplomatic status allows me to travel without much scrutiny, but I need to be back in 3 days for a council session. Greg nodded. We'll make it work. He paused. You should know. I've heard rumors from other pilots. Strange things happening at the edges of known space. Ships disappearing. Sensors failing. The guild tells us to ignore it, but pilots talk. What kind of strange things? Jack asked. Darkness. Not normal space darkness. Something that moves against the stars. Something that swallows light. Greg shook his head. Most think it's tall tales. Space madness. But too many have seen it now. They left that night, Greg filing a false flight plan for a supply run to an outer station. The Lucky Star slipped away from Nexus Station quietly, jumping to light speed as soon as they cleared the safety zone. 2 days later, they dropped back to normal space near the coordinates. Scans showed nothing but asteroids and ice chunks floating in the emptiness. There's nothing here, Greg said, checking his instruments. No signs of a station or outpost. Jack stared at the view screen. Try broadcasting on the Alpha 79er frequency. Greg sent the signal. For 10 minutes, nothing happened. Then a small light appeared among the asteroids. It blinked 3 times, then stayed steady. A beacon, Greg whispered. Someone's out there. They followed the light, weaving through the asteroid field. On the far side, hidden in the shadow of a massive rock, floated a structure unlike any human station Jack had seen before. It was dark, with few visible lights, its surface reflecting no starlight. "That's not one of ours," Greg said. "That technology." Before Jack could respond, their ship shuddered as an unseen force grabbed them. The Lucky Star was pulled toward the strange station, all controls dead. "They've got us in some kind of tractor beam," Greg said, hands flying over useless controls. A voice crackled over their comm system. "Ambassador Miller, this is Dr. Samantha Foster. Welcome to Horizon. Sorry about the force docking, but we can't risk being detected. The fate of what remains of humanity depends on it." The airlock hissed open. Jack and Greg stepped through into a dimly lit corridor. 3 people waited for them. 2 held weapons, simple laser pistols, standard security issue on Earth outposts. The third was a woman with short blonde hair and tired blue eyes. Jack recognized her from the video message. "Dr. Foster," he said, extending his hand. "Ambassador Miller," she replied, shaking it firmly. "And this is Greg Walsh, cargo pilot. He brought me here." Samantha nodded to Greg, then gestured down the corridor. "Follow me. We don't have much time." They walked through narrow passages. The station hummed with power, but most sections were dark to conserve energy. People moved about. Jack counted at least 20 humans as they passed. Some nodded to them. Others simply stared. "How many survived?" Jack asked quietly. 312, Samantha answered. "Scientists, engineers, a few military personnel. We were part of a deep space research team. When the first colonies went silent, our commander ordered us to this location and initiated blackout protocols." "Smart move," Greg said. "He died 6 months ago. Radiation exposure during our escape." Samantha's voice was flat. "This way." She led them into a large room filled with screens and equipment. Maps of the galaxy covered one wall, with red marks scattered across dozens of star systems. "Each red mark is a civilization that went silent," Samantha explained. "Some were council members. Others were independent. All gone." "Like Earth," Jack said. "Yes, but Earth wasn't random. It was deliberately targeted." Samantha pressed a button. A 3D model of their galaxy appeared, with the red marks now glowing. "Look at the pattern." Jack studied it. The red marks formed a spiral pattern, working inward from the outer rim. "It's methodical," he said, "like something working its way through the galaxy." "Exactly." Samantha zoomed in on Earth's sector. "We call it the Void Entity. It consumes worlds, absorbs civilizations. It doesn't destroy planets. It takes them somewhere else." "Takes them where?" Greg asked. Samantha shook her head. "We don't know, but we found references to it in ancient texts, and we found this." She handed Jack a small tablet. On the screen was a document, old, written in an alien language, but translated into standard galactic. "Where did you get this?" Jack asked, reading. "From the personal archives of Admiral Perry before Earth went dark. It's a fragment from the private library of the Arcturian High Elder, a record of something called the Bargain." Jack read aloud. "As agreed upon in the first cycle, the Elder Seven shall direct the entity to the younger worlds, preserving the ancient civilizations. This covenant has served for 10,000 years and shall continue until the final phase." His blood went cold. The Elder Seven, the founding species of the Galactic Council. "Yes," Samantha said. "The oldest, most advanced civilizations. They're directing this thing, sacrificing younger species to save themselves." Greg cursed under his breath. You're saying the council leaders knew. They knew Earth would be taken. Not just knew. They chose Earth. They choose all the targets. Samantha's eyes were hard. We intercepted communications between council elders. Earth was designated as suitable tribute 3 years ago. Jack felt sick. He had sat in council meetings, looking at the elder representatives, never suspecting they had condemned his entire species. I need proof I can take back to the council, he said finally. Something that will convince the other representatives. We have data, recordings, the translated documents, Samantha said. But more importantly, we have this. She pressed another button. A screen lit up, showing a recording of space. At first, Jack saw nothing unusual. Then he noticed the stars, or rather, the absence of stars. A patch of absolute darkness moved across the screen, not like a ship or object, but like living ink spreading across the cosmos. What am I looking at? Jack whispered. The entity itself, Samantha said quietly. This was recorded as it approached the Proxima Centauri colony. 3 days later, the entire system went dark. Jack stared at the moving darkness. It seemed to pull at his eyes, making him dizzy. We need to get this evidence to the council, he said. The other species need to know they're being sacrificed. That's why we contacted you, Samantha said. But be careful. The elders have agents everywhere. If they discover what you know, I understand the risk. Jack downloaded the data to a secure drive. I'll find allies. There must be others who suspect something. There's one more thing you should know, Samantha said. According to our calculations, the pattern is accelerating. More worlds are being taken, faster than before. Why? Greg asked. We believe the entity is preparing for something bigger, something worse than taking individual worlds. Samantha's voice dropped. Ambassador Miller, we think it's preparing for an endgame. The end of what? Jack asked. Everything, she replied simply. The end of everything. The return journey to Nexus Station was tense and quiet. Jack kept the data drive in an inside pocket, touching it often to make sure it was still there. Greg pushed the lucky star to its limits, racing against time. We should be careful when we dock, Greg said as the station came into view. Act normal. Say nothing about where we've been. Jack nodded. I need to find allies before I present this evidence. Species that might be next on the list. They docked without incident and parted ways at the bay door. Greg promised to keep his ship ready for a quick escape if needed. Jack headed straight for his quarters, avoiding main corridors and busy areas. When he reached his room, the door was already open. Jack froze, then slowly peeked inside. Vila Moore stood by his desk, her slender blue fingers moving across his computer terminal. What are you doing here? Jack asked, stepping inside. She jumped, then relaxed when she saw him. Ambassador Miller, you disappeared. Delegate Zornful was concerned. I needed to check something, Jack said carefully. Where is Zornful now? Vila Moore looked down. He's gone. Called to an emergency meeting with the Arcturian elders 3 days ago. He hasn't returned. Jack felt a chill. Has that happened before? Never. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Other delegates have been summoned too, all from younger species who were asking questions about the silent worlds. Jack closed the door. Vila Moore, I need your help. I have proof of what's happening to the missing worlds, but I need allies to present it to the council. She hesitated, then nodded. The Proximan ambassador, Amy Rhodes. She's been investigating too. And Delegate Kral of the Centaur. They might listen. Can you arrange a meeting? Somewhere private? Yes. There's a maintenance section in the lower levels, rarely used. I'll send you the location. After she left, Jack hid the data drive inside a panel in the floor. He couldn't risk carrying it until the meeting. That night, Jack couldn't sleep. He paced his small room, running through what he would say to potential allies. How do you tell someone their entire species might be sacrificed? His door chime rang at midnight. Jack opened it to find a station security officer. "Ambassador Miller, I need you to come with me." Jack's heart raced. "What's this about?" "There's been an incident. A human cargo pilot. You were seen with him recently." "Greg." Jack followed the officer through the station, fear growing with each step. They'd reached the lower cargo bay, where a small crowd had gathered. Medical staff moved a covered body onto a stretcher. "What happened?" Jack asked a nearby worker. "Accident," the alien said. "Human got caught between cargo containers. Crushed." Jack felt sick. He knew it was no accident. They had killed Greg to send a message. The security officer let him go after a few questions. Jack headed straight for the maintenance section, hoping Villa Moore had arranged the meeting. 3 figures waited in the shadows of a giant air recycling unit. Ambassador Miller, Amy Rhodes of Proxima, stepped forward. The human colony had gained independent status years ago. Though human in origin, Proximans had developed their own culture. Amy was tall and dark-skinned, with the typical Proximan facial markings, small blue dots along her cheekbones. Beside her stood Delegate Krell, a bulky Centaurian with rough gray skin and 4 eyes. The third figure was a surprise. Nen Vos, the Pleiadian scientist known for eccentric theories and wild claims. "Thank you for coming," Jack said. "Villa Moore said you have proof about the missing worlds," Amy said. "My home colony lost contact with 3 outposts last month." Jack explained what he had discovered. The pattern, the ancient bargain, the entity itself. He told them about Research Outpost Horizon and the surviving humans. "This is very serious," Krall rumbled. "If true, many worlds are in danger." "It is true," Jack said. "My friend died tonight because of what we know." Nenvo stepped forward, his thin body trembling with excitement. "I've studied station archives for years. There are gaps in the records, entire civilizations erased from history. Why would the elders do this?" Amy asked. "Sacrifice so many for themselves." "Fear," Jack said. "Fear of extinction. They've survived by feeding others to this thing. We need to bring this to the full council," Krall decided. "Force them to acknowledge it." Jack nodded. "I'll use emergency protocols to call a special session. But first, I need to retrieve the evidence from my quarters." As they left the maintenance area, none of them noticed the small surveillance drone hovering in a dark corner, its red light blinking as it recorded everything. Jack entered the council chamber with his allies close behind. The massive room was filling quickly as representatives responded to the emergency summons. Jack had used an old protocol that hadn't been activated in over 50 years, one that required all council members to attend, including the 7 elder race delegates who rarely appeared in person. Amy Rhodes stood beside Jack, her face tight with tension. Krall and Nenvos positioned themselves at different points around the chamber, watching for threats. Vela Moore had warned them that security forces were on high alert, though no official reason had been given. "Look," Amy whispered, pointing to the highest tier of seats. 7 figures entered through a private door, the elder representatives. Beings so ancient and powerful that some younger species viewed them as gods. The Arcturian elder moved with slow grace, his skin almost transparent with age. The Mercurian elder floated above her seat, her massive body supported by anti-gravity technology. The others were just as strange and impressive. The crystalline Regelian, the shadow-like Syrian, the mechanical Aldebaranian, the gaseous vegan, and the hive-minded Catalan. The chamber fell silent as they took their places. High Counselor Zeth activated the central platform. "This emergency session is highly irregular," he said, his ancient voice echoing. "Who has called us here?" Jack stepped forward. "I have. Ambassador Jack Miller of Earth." A murmur ran through the crowd. The elders stared down at him with cold, alien eyes. "Earth is silent," the Mercurian elder said. "You represent nothing." "Earth was taken," Jack replied loudly, "just as dozens of other worlds were taken. Not by accident or disaster, but by design. Your design. The chamber erupted in shouts and questions. Jack raised his hand, holding the data drive. I have evidence that the elder races have been sacrificing younger civilizations to an entity that consumes worlds, a bargain made long ago to save themselves while condemning others. The Arcturian elder leaned forward. These are serious accusations, human. Do you understand the penalty for false claims against council elders? I understand the penalty for genocide, Jack answered, which is what you've committed against my people and many others. He plugged the data drive into the central console. The chamber's main screen lit up, showing the star map with its pattern of silent worlds. Jack explained each piece of evidence: the mathematical pattern, the historical records, the ancient document describing the bargain. Finally, he showed the recording of the void entity, the living darkness moving across space. The chamber went completely silent as representatives watched in horror. This entity has taken dozens of civilizations, Jack said. Earth was just the most recent, and according to our data, the pattern is accelerating. More worlds will be taken, and soon. The Syrian elder rose, her shadow form rippling with anger. This human spreads lies and fear. The silent worlds fell to their own weaknesses, natural selection at work in the cosmos. Then explain this, Jack said, showing the translated document about the bargain. Your own records admit to directing the entity to younger worlds. The Capellan elder's many bodies shifted nervously. Ancient history is often misinterpreted. Delegate Krull stepped forward. My world has lost 3 colony systems in the past year. We demand the truth. Other representatives joined in, shouting questions and demands. The chamber descended into chaos as centuries of trust shattered. The vacant elder raised his gaseous form, glowing with energy. When he spoke, his voice cut through the noise like thunder. Enough. What the human says is partly true. There is an entity. It does consume worlds. But you misunderstand our role. The room quieted instantly. We do not control the entity, the vegan continued. We guide it away from certain systems. Would you rather it moved randomly? Took worlds without pattern or purpose. You sacrifice the young to save the old, Amy said. How is that justice? It is survival. The Arcturian elder replied calmly. The entity cannot be stopped. It cannot be destroyed. It has existed since before stars burned. We found a way to coexist. By ensuring some survive, the Regelian elder's crystalline voice chimed. Without our guidance, it would consume all. Jack looked around the chamber, seeing the shock and fear on hundreds of faces. I don't believe you. And I don't think they do either. The Aldebaranian elder's mechanical form clicked and whirred. This session is over. Guards, seize the human and his conspirators. They have violated Council security protocols. Security forces moved in from all entrances. Jack and his allies backed toward the center platform. You see, Jack called to the representatives. They silenced the truth. Ask yourselves, which of your worlds will be next? Alarms blared throughout Nexus Station. Jack and his allies ran through service corridors, security forces close behind. Nenvaz led the way, his knowledge of the station's layout proving invaluable. This way, the Pleiadian called, opening a maintenance hatch. The central core is our only chance. They crawled through narrow tunnels, emerging in a dim hallway that looked ancient compared to the rest of the station. The walls were made of some dark material that absorbed light rather than reflected it. What is this place? Amy asked, touching a wall cautiously. The original station, Nenvos explained. Nexus was built around an ancient structure. The Council claimed it was an abandoned outpost from a long-dead civilization. But you don't believe that, Jack said. I've studied the old blueprints. This core section doesn't match any known design. And the material. Nenvaz ran his thin fingers along the wall. It absorbs energy, all types of energy. Krell's 4 eyes narrowed. Like the entity in your recording. A distant bang echoed through the corridor. Security forces were breaking through the sealed doors. "We need to keep moving," Amy urged. Nenvaz led them deeper into the core. The passages grew narrower, the air colder. Strange symbols covered the walls. Not writing, but something more like mathematical equations or star charts. "Have you translated these?" Jack asked. "Not fully, but they're old, older than any language in the council records." They reached a circular chamber. In the center stood a pillar of the same dark material as the walls, rising from floor to ceiling. It hummed with power, vibrating at a frequency just below hearing. "What is this place?" Amy whispered. "I believe it's a monitoring station," Nenvos said. "Or a beacon." Jack stared at the pillar. Something about it pulled at his mind, like a half-forgotten memory. "It's connected to the entity." "Yes," Nenvos agreed. "That's my theory. Nexus Station wasn't built around this structure by accident. The Elders knew what it was. They're not just directing the entity away from their worlds," Jack realized. "They're working with it. They're its servants." A loud crash echoed from the passage they had used. Security was getting closer. "We need to get this information out," Amy said. "To all worlds, not just the Council." Nenvos moved to a console near the pillar. "This connects to the station's communication array. We could broadcast a message." "Do it," Jack decided. "Send everything. The evidence, the recordings, the translations." As Nenvos worked, the walls around them shuddered. A low moan filled the air, like metal under stress. "What's happening?" Krell asked, looking around nervously. "The station," Nenvos said, fingers flying over the console. "It's changing." Jack pressed his hand against a wall. The dark material felt warm now, almost soft. And it was moving, rippling like water. "It's not changing," he said quietly. "It's waking up." Part of the wall bulged outward, forming a shape almost like a face. Empty eye sockets stared at Jack. A mouth opened in a silent scream. "The station is part of the entity," Amy gasped. "Or the entity is part of the station," Jack corrected. "This is why the Elders built the council here. They've been sitting on top of their master all along." The floor shifted beneath them, rising in some places, sinking in others. The walls pulsed with dark energy. "I've connected to the array," Nenvos called. "Broadcasting now." Screens around the chamber lit up, showing the transmission going out to thousands of worlds simultaneously. The evidence of the Elders' betrayal, the nature of the entity, and now the revelation about Nexus Station itself. Security forces burst into the chamber, weapons raised. Behind them came the Arcturian Elder, his ancient face twisted with rage. "Fools," he hissed. "Do you know what you've done?" "Told the truth," Jack answered. "You've triggered it," the Elder said, real fear in his voice. The final phase. The harvest was controlled, measured. But now, the pillar in the center of the room cracked open, revealing not machinery or technology, but something like a black hole, a void that pulled at light itself. "What is the final phase?" Jack demanded. The Arcturian Elder backed away, his eyes fixed on the opening pillar. "The end of the cycle, the consumption of all. It was never going to spare us forever. We just bought time." Around them, Nexus Station continued to transform. The walls melted and reformed into organic shapes. The floor became soft and pliable, like living tissue. "The station is the entity," Jack whispered. "It's been here all along, watching, waiting. And now it's hungry." Chaos erupted throughout Nexus Station. The transformation spread from the core outward, turning metal and plastic into living, pulsing matter. Panicked beings ran for escape pods and ships, fighting to flee the horror their supposed sanctuary had become. In the core chamber, Jack, Amy, Krell, and Nenvos stood their ground as security forces retreated in terror. Only the Arcturian Elder remained, his ancient face a mask of resignation. "You cannot stop it," he said. "None can. We merely delayed the inevitable." "Why?" Jack demanded. Why sacrifice billions of lives? Trillions, the elder corrected. Over thousands of years, and we did it for the same reason any being fights to survive. Fear of the end. The pillar in the center had fully opened now, revealing a swirling darkness that defied physics. It didn't pull matter in like a black hole. Instead, it seemed to erase reality itself around its edges. The broadcast is still going, Nenvos called from the console. Ships are fleeing the station. They're carrying the message to their homeworlds. It's too late, the Arcturian said. The entity will consume everything now. All stars, all worlds, all life. Jack looked at the void growing in the center of the room. Then he looked at the console where Nenvos worked. Can you modify the broadcast? He asked suddenly. How? Nenvos asked. Add Dr. Foster's research, all of it. Her theories about the entity's nature, the data on its movements, the weaknesses she suspected it might have. Amy moved to help Nenvos. The entity absorbs energy, but certain frequencies disrupted its patterns in the lab tests. Jack turned to the Arcturian elder. You never tried to fight it, did you? You just surrendered, offering others to save yourselves. The elder's transparent skin flushed blue with anger. We tried for millennia. Nothing worked. Nothing stops it. Because you kept its secrets, Krell rumbled. Imagine if all species had worked together, sharing knowledge. The station shuddered violently. Parts of the ceiling collapsed as the structure continued its grotesque transformation. The walls now pulsed with visible veins carrying dark fluid. We don't have much time, Amy called. The station's life support is failing. Jack looked at the console. Is the broadcast ready? Nenvos nodded. Adding Dr. Foster's research now. We need to keep this transmission going as long as possible, Jack said. Even if the station fails, other worlds need this information. The floor beneath them lurched, throwing them off balance. The void in the center grew larger, its edges touching the walls now. Where they met, reality simply ceased to exist. The Arcturian elder backed toward the exit. You're all doomed. I will join my kind in our sanctuary world. There is no sanctuary, Jack said. Not anymore. As if confirming his words, the station's emergency system activated, a computer voice announcing. Warning. Spatial anomalies detected throughout the station. Structural integrity failing. All personnel evacuate immediately. The broadcast won't last much longer, Nenvos said. The system is breaking down. Jack looked at his allies. You should go. Get to escape pods while you can. Amy shook her head. Someone needs to maintain the broadcast. Keep adding data as the transformation progresses. I'll stay too, Krell decided. My people must know what we learned. Nenvos nodded agreement. This is knowledge worth dying for. The Arcturian elder had fled, but it didn't matter. Their message was spreading across the galaxy faster than the entity could move. Thousands of ships fled Nexus Station, each carrying the truth to different worlds. Jack moved to the console, typing a final message. To all who receive this, what you are witnessing is the true form of the void entity that has consumed countless worlds. Study it, understand it, fight it. Humanity may be lost, but you need not follow. We stand witness to the end, so that you might find a beginning. The void grew larger, consuming more of the chamber. The walls and floor dissolved into it. The console flickered as power systems failed. From the void came a sound, not heard with ears but felt in the mind. The vast, ancient hunger, awakening fully after eons of partial slumber. Jack looked at Amy, Krell, and Nenvos, 4 beings from different worlds, standing together at the end. It was an honor to represent humanity, Jack said as darkness closed in around them. You represented more than humanity, Amy replied. You represented life itself. The void expanded one final time, engulfing the chamber completely. Across the galaxy, thousands of ships carried their message to worlds not yet taken. Species that had been enemies now shared information, comparing notes on the entity's patterns. Research that had been hidden for millennia was now freely exchanged. Among the fleeing ships was a small vessel from Research Outpost Horizon. On its bridge, Dr. Samantha Foster watched the recording of Jack's final broadcast. Behind her stood the remaining survivors of humanity. Jack witnessed the end, she told them quietly. But he also gave us a beginning. She turned to face the stars, where a new alliance was already forming. We're not the last humans anymore, she said. We're the first of something new.